As a person who has stood Black Swan before, I have noticed something that has tickled my fancy. We have groups like GIRLSET, Black Swan, KATSEYE and even X, who are considered global groups or K-pop groups with foreign members, but there has always been an issue with music. This came to mind when the Instagram page called Korean_girl groups posted about BLACKSWAN with the caption, "Two hated each other. The other two were about to leave. They were in jail and still dropped this banger." And the comments were filled with stuff saying BLACKSWAN has trash music with comments like, "I'm so tired of PPL trying to pretend that BLACKSWAN have ever released a good song. This song is not a bop Elmao. This song was not a bop lul. It was messy and Fatu's parts weren't great IMO. They didn't sound good either on this." On X, official page for their recent comeback called Dazzle Flash, also received hate from their own fans, calling the music trash.
Walking, just walking, 시선이 내게로 와. What's that? What happened? I didn't do anything. I'm scared, I'm so scared. 어디든 가야겠어.
With comments like, "Mediocre song, but all the other songs in the album are too good. Who dat deserves to be a better title track? What an ass song. Stinky gif. What the fuck are these vocals? Everyone knows what everyone feels about Internet Girl from KATSEYE. It is trash by default." And with GIRLSET and their release of Commas,
You keep looking at me, keep looking at me like you wanna spend some money on me, some money on me. I'm like, come on.
and the comments about them were like this. Them singing "Spend Some Money on Me" when JYP didn't want to do just that is so funny. I don't get their drop strategy lol. If I didn't know they were from JYP, I would think they were from a Nugu company. What's this MV? This literally looks like they put this together over the weekend, OMG. And my booty was thinking, why in the world does girl groups with global members have such high standards with music? Yes, GIRLSET has been making bangers recently with their most recent release, but didn't K-pop fans say they want old K-pop back music-wise? BLACKSWAN is currently giving off that vibe. As much as we do be hatting and laughing at KATSEYE, they are also giving off old K-pop vibes with Internet Girl. If it was in Korean or even Japanese, I think YL would have been fine with it. Hell, if Miss ILLIT or La S Seraphim released Cat and Mouse or even Touch or Internet Girl, YL would have ate it up. I mean, YL ate up spaghetti, and if those groups released it, it would have been a bloodbath, let's be so real. Traditional K-pop groups are mostly judged within the K-pop system, visuals, choreography, concepts, fandom culture and comeback schedules, but when a group is promoted as global or Western-leaning, people start comparing them to Western pop acts instead. That means the music itself has to carry way more weight. When a company markets a group as global, the music can't be average, it has to be exceptional. Because you're not just competing with other K-pop songs anymore, you're competing with global pop playlists, Western radio, and artists who don't rely on the K-pop system at all. This is why groups like BLACKSWAN often get judged 10 times harsher than idols from huge companies. They don't have the same marketing machine or fandom infrastructure behind them, so the song itself has to pull people in. And honestly, this is where I think the industry still hasn't fully figured things out yet. Companies clearly want global groups. They want the international audience. They want the diversity and the worldwide fandom. But a lot of them are still using the same music formula that works inside K-pop, and that doesn't always translate when the target audience is the entire global pop market. So the result is this weird double standard. Some big company groups can release a song that's just fine and the fandom will carry it, but global groups, they don't have that luxury. For them, the music has to be undeniably good. Let's talk about something else that's also related to global girl groups too, but it's also something I want to touch on. When people talk about colorism in entertainment, one concept that sometimes gets referenced is the paper bag test. This wasn't a K-pop thing originally. It comes from parts of African American history in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when some social clubs and institutions informally favored people whose skin tone was lighter than a brown paper bag. It's often discussed in conversations about colorism, where lighter skin within the same racial group is treated more favorably. Now, when people bring this idea into K-pop discussions, they're usually talking about perceived beauty standards in the industry. For decades, mainstream K-pop visuals have tended to follow a very specific aesthetic: very pale skin, certain facial features, and a narrow body standard. That doesn't mean every idol fits it, but it has been a dominant beauty norm in the industry. Discussions around this often connect to broader issues of colorism that exist in many parts of the world, including East Asia. So when black idols or darker-skinned performers enter K-pop spaces, people sometimes notice something. The ones who get the most visibility often have lighter complexions compared to the global range of black skin tones. Critics argue that this mirrors the same colorism patterns seen in other entertainment industries. Groups like BLACKSWAN are frequently mentioned in these conversations because they are one of the few K-pop groups with black members and a very international lineup. Their presence has sparked discussions online about how beauty standards, skin tone, and representation play out in the industry. While with GIRLSET and KATSEYE, their black member is someone who is of lighter skin tone and are often deemed as white passing even though they're still black. To be clear, there isn't evidence that K-pop companies literally apply a paper bag test, but the conversation around it usually reflects something broader: the way global beauty standards and colorism can influence casting decisions, marketing, and who gets pushed as the visual of a group. And this ties back to the earlier point about global groups. When companies say they want diversity and international audiences, fans start paying closer attention to how that diversity actually shows up, including skin tone, representation, and whether different kinds of beauty are truly being embraced. So the debate isn't really about a literal test. It's about whether the industry's beauty standards are actually expanding or if they're still staying within a very narrow range. Now let's compare bar for bar, release to release, with how others view it with all the nitpicking. No hate for these groups, this is just what I have noticed. Their debut song, Debut, follows a very typical modern K-pop/pop formula: short runtime, chant-style chorus, heavy focus on choreography moments. It's literally about 2 minutes long, which is the same TikTok-friendly structure many K-pop groups are using right now. But here's the funny thing. When people heard BLACKSWAN by GIRLSET, a lot of listeners actually noticed similarities between the two songs and their performance style. Yet the media reaction wasn't the same. GIRLSET's comeback was still treated like a major summer hit, while KATSEYE's debut was met with way more skepticism and criticism online. So already you start seeing the pattern. Now look at BLACKSWAN. Their 2023 release Karma came from the single album That Karma, which included tracks like Karma and Cat and Mouse. The song itself follows a very standard K-pop girl crush structure. Dramatic intro, right arrow rap section, powerful chorus, right arrow choreography-focused dance break. That formula is basically the same structure used in songs like Savage by HYBE, Kill This Love by BLACKPNK.
Oh my gosh! Don't you know I'm a savage?
But the difference is exposure. Songs like Savage or Kill This Love exploded with hundreds of millions of views and huge playlist promotion. Meanwhile, BLACKSWAN's releases often struggle to reach the same visibility, even though the musical formula is basically the same style of dramatic EDM girl crush pop. So again, the issue doesn't look like the music itself. Then you have XIN, which is another interesting case. Songs like Keeping the Fire, My Idols lean heavily into high-energy EDM pop, something that has been extremely common in K-pop for years. And if you compare those tracks with songs like ISM by IVE, DM by Fromies9, they actually sit in a very similar sonic space in terms of tempo and dance pop structure. But again, the reaction is completely different. IVE releases a dramatic dance pop anthem, and the industry calls it iconic. A smaller multinational group releases something in the same lane, and suddenly the internet says the music is generic or cheap. And then we have GIRLSET, which might be the most interesting example. Their debut track Commas had a very similar rollout to other global-style girl group debuts: heavy visuals, social media-friendly choreography, and a Western pop production style. But when global groups debut with this type of music, people immediately start asking questions like, why does this sound so generic? Why doesn't it have identity? Meanwhile, plenty of big K-pop groups release songs that are very trend-based or formulaic, and they're still celebrated because the fandom and marketing machine are already there. So the real question becomes, is the music actually worse? Or are people just judging the groups differently depending on who released the song? Because when you line the songs up side by side, the formulas, the production styles, and even the song structures often look way more similar than fans want to admit. But one group gets called innovative, and the other gets called mid. And that difference, a lot of the time it comes down to company power, fandom size, and media attention, not just the music. Now, if we're really going to talk about double standards, we have to talk about how global girl groups are judged compared to major company K-pop groups like ILLIT and LESSERIFIM, both under HYBE. Let's start with ILLIT. Their debut song Magnetic absolutely exploded online. It went viral on TikTok, dominated streaming charts, and got massive media attention. And to be fair, the song is catchy. It's bright, it's easy to listen to, and it fits perfectly into the current soft hyperpop/dreamy pop trend that's popular right now because of groups like New Jeans. But if you actually listen to the structure of the song, it's built on a very simple pop formula. Light synths, repetitive hook, short runtime, and choreography moments designed for social media. Which is interesting, because when global groups release simple, TikTok-friendly pop songs, people often call them generic or say they lack identity. But when a HYBE rookie group does it, suddenly it's the future of K-pop. And then there's LESSERIFIM. Songs like ***, Easy, ***, and Smart lean heavily into Western pop and hip-hop influences, and very much like TYLA's music. The minimal beats, the laid-back delivery, the focus on vibe rather than big melodic choruses, that's a style that has been everywhere in global pop recently. But if a smaller multinational group released a track with that same low-energy, vibe-focused structure, the conversation online would probably look very different. People would start asking, where the chorus? Why does the song feel unfinished? This sounds like a demo. Yet when a big company group does it, the media frames it as experimental, trendy, or innovative. And this is where the industry advantage becomes really obvious. Big companies like HYBE already have huge marketing budgets, massive pre-debut hype, automatic playlist placement, and fandoms ready to stream the second a song drops. So even if a song is just decent, it still gets treated like a cultural moment. Meanwhile, groups like BLACKSWAN or XIN can release songs in similar sonic lanes, but without that giant industry push behind them, the reaction becomes way harsher. Instead of being called trendy, their music gets labeled cheap, generic, or trying too hard. So the real question is, are global groups actually releasing worse music? Or are people subconsciously holding them to a much higher standard than groups coming from the biggest companies in the industry? Because once you start comparing the songs side by side, the gap isn't always as big as people think. But the reaction definitely is.